Medical Courier Connection podcast is brought to you by Key Software Systems. We believe that every delivery has a story, and it starts with you. That's why we built an ecosystem uniting accounting, delivery, tracking, and shipping, reporting, and more to not only bring full delivery transparency to your customers, but to reduce errors and inefficiencies that stand in the way of over-delivering on your customer expectations. We'll drive the heavy lifting that keeps your business innovative with the latest technologies so that you can focus on building connections with your customers.
Hey everybody, hey everybody, hey everybody, hey everybody, Ken with Integrity Medical Courier Training.
We are providing on-site training in Roseville, Minnesota.
A man's digits turn blue due to too much cannabis use. A woman in Melbourne, Australia dies after being scratched by Minty, her cat. Stole the hearse and dumped the body on the side of the road, still strapped to the gurney, and then continued on with their joyride. A dog had to be put down after it was crushed by a package thrown over a garden fence, its owners claim. So, stay compliant, my friends. Get all your medical courier training needs from us at www.integritydelivers.com.
Welcome to the Medical Courier Connection podcast.
Yeah, welcome everybody. We got some interesting things to talk about today. It's always great to get together and do these podcasts. We need to do more. We're working on that in 2025. But hey.
Hi.
Yeah, we got Faith here.
So Faith is, and we're going to talk a little bit with you in a bit, but Faith has been with our company in many different forms for quite a few years on and off. And so kind of excited about that. We're going to talk about dental lab deliveries today and kind of what the dental lab industry does. Believe it or not, there are couriers that do deliveries to the dental lab industry and for the dental lab industry. So we're going to talk about that. Let's talk first of all about what's going on with Integrity Medical and the Medical Courier Connection. We have got an event coming up in April, the Express Carriers Association annual meeting. We're going to be going to Reno, Nevada. And I will be taking, if you want to send your money to my PayPal account, I'll gamble for you and let you know whether or not you won or lost. Mm-hmm. So that is certainly something that we can do. And we're working on some new programs. We're working on, actually, Linda's putting the finishing touches on a financing program for our automated library. And the thing is, if you're going to be a medical courier, you need to know where your money's going. And you need to know how much you're bringing in. That's really basic, but if you don't understand basic finances, you could go out there as a medical courier and fall flat on your face. So we don't want that. So that course is coming up soon. Watch for that announcement. We're still working on the infectious category A program. Hopefully we'll have that up in the first quarter, but I'm guessing maybe by summer. And that's so the new additions that we're making, we're constantly upgrading the library. We are working on, Faith is actually working on a new look to our specimen handling and transport program as well.
Yep. Looks really good.
So yeah, I mean, it's bringing it into the common era. I mean, my PowerPoint presentation is severely dated, and even, us baby boomers, we need help from time to time. And so Faith is definitely helping me with that.
Yeah.
So
I'm working on a marketing course as well.
Sweet. So, we're looking to be your one-stop shop for all things courier related. We're building out our library. Why would you need to go anywhere else? Couple of other quick issues. There are more and more fake Ken Arnold's popping up on TikTok, soliciting you and talking in ways that I never would. But keep in mind that I will never solicit you. I'll never DM you. I'll never reach out to you. Yeah. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on all these different social media streams. Right now, the podcast is on YouTube. We're on X. We're on Instagram. And so there's no reason you shouldn't follow us on all these different platforms. But always know that I'm not going to DM you and try and sell you a course. If you want any courses, go to our website, integritydelivers.com. Click on Get Trained. Click on online courses or scroll down to live webinars, and you can choose whatever fits your needs. Some people like the live experience. Some people prefer self-paced learning on a recorded situation. But again, we're not going to reach out to you. And by the way, on TikTok, we have 11.4 thousand followers, you guys. these phonies all have between 1 and 2 and 3,000 followers, but beware, you guys, because there's people out there trying to steal your money.
Yeah, you guys should know Ken never says finna in any conversation. He's never said it. So if there's a Ken reaching out to you saying that, that's not us for sure.
Yeah, the phonies usually reach out and they say blessings and salutations, and then they talk about how would you like to make hundreds of thousands of dollars as a medical courier. We don't discuss pricing.
Yeah.
We don't mess around. Chris, have you got a snapshot of one of the phonies?
No, this is us, but I can find a phony. We got 11,500 followers and almost 4 years worth of videos. So keep that in mind. A lot of them only have like our first 10 videos on there.
That's right.
If you can scroll this long, it's probably us. They're not putting in that kind of work.
Yeah. Listen, man, I love some of our earlier videos. We did a lot of stories about, first of all, we do a story about how a cat got crushed by a package, and then all the cat lovers squealed and screamed. And then we did equal time, we did a story about a dog that got crushed, and the dog lovers were screaming. And so it's kind of fun, but we learned what really got people engaged and involved. We got a lot of great content. And remember, you pot smokers, don't smoke too much marijuana or your fingers may turn blue. So
exactly.
awesome. All right, let's get to the topic at hand. I think we covered all of that. Don't forget to like. Chris, what's the routine on YouTube?
Like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications.
Yeah, ring that bell.
Yeah, ring it. Yeah, but then that ensures that when we post the podcast or other content, it gets sent directly to you.
Perfect. So. All right, great. Thank you, guys. So let's talk a little bit about the dental lab industry. You guys, the annual spend in the United States on dental lab work is $30 billion. $30 billion. So that indicates that there's a lot of money in the dental lab industry. I just recently had an implant and a crown put on a molar. I went for like 6 years without a molar, and now I'm relearning to chew on both sides of my mouth. Want to see it? No, okay. No, we're not going to do that.
Beautiful work. Whoever did it.
It was
did a great job.
Right here. Faith did it. So, but there's a lot of money involved in the dental lab industry, and so believe it or not, there is a lot of money to be made for courier companies in the dental lab industry. And in every major city, and even small cities, there'll be these mom and pop startup dental lab shops. And Chris has got a great graphic there on the dental lab industry. But yeah, we're spending billions of dollars on dental work, and someone's got to transport and pick up and deliver the crowns and the impressions and things like that. But let's talk a little bit to Faith. As I mentioned, Faith she's worked for Integrity Medical Couriers on and off throughout the years. What are you doing now for us, Faith?
So right now I work on the Facebook page and basically just helping out I'm doing the dental course and then helping out getting your course.
Keeping me organized, because at my age, I need all the help I can get.
Yeah.
But the Facebook page, we opened that up back a year ago in December, just on a whim. And now we've got 191.3 thousand followers there. So that page has really exploded. So we do a lot of our announcements and things like that on the Medical Couriers page. There it is, the 191.3. Yeah, great.
Yeah, that's us.
Once we get to 200,000, I think we should do something big.
Do a giveaway.
Yeah.
Something real good. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that's a great idea. We are doing a class this Saturday or tomorrow, and we're doing some giveaways there, like spill kits.
Oh, yeah.
We're giving away spill kits at tomorrow's class. We're giving away a $259 value course, including a manual and 2 trainee credits. So a lot of fun things going on. Yeah, we like to give back to the courier industry from time to time, right?
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes.
You got to keep them humble, but,
Yeah, no, you know what? I mean, we
No.
never want to forget our roots and who brought us here. And so
Yeah.
a lot of great things are happening there. So Faith, if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about how you got started in the dental industry.
So I really wanted to go, I don't know if you even know this, but I wanted to go to school for an ultrasound tech. I wanted to look at babies all day, and you have to, in order to get into that, you have to have a 2-year degree in a patient care related field, and dental assisting was in our area. So I chose that. And then the day I started, I just fell in love with it. I loved it. I was like, dental is going to be so easy. It's so straightforward. No,
Yeah.
It's a lot more in depth than you
Yeah.
think.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I've been doing it for 13 years now.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to get the the certification that you needed to be in the
So in
field?
Colorado, you don't need any certification at all. But I did it. I have an associate's degree in it. So
Wow.
I did more than, yeah. We
How
did
long?
1 full year was just focusing on fillings.
Yeah.
So that's my,
That's what it took, 1 full
Wow.
year to get your degree.
yeah.
Where's your degree? Is it in your office at home?
Yeah. It's not, I don't have it up. It's just in my filing cabinet.
Yeah, put that up. That's an accomplishment. You know, I
It's the
spent
most
20 years
millennial thing.
Yeah.
It's in my filing cabinet. So-
I spent 20 years in the lab industry, and I got a certificate for my service, and I don't know where it is. It's in a box somewhere, but I should probably put that up at some point.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, what does a dental lab do? Can you describe briefly what a dental lab does?
So there's a lot of different things that dental labs can do. Mainly, they'll make the crowns. They'll do abutments for implant crowns.
What's a crown and what's an abutment?
So a crown covers the whole tooth. The abutment, basically, when you get an implant, you get a post in the bone, and then the abutment acts as the tooth that's prepped out. Basically, on top, it supports the crown, and then the crown goes on top of it. So it's basically 3 parts. But they do a lot of dentures, mainly the dental labs. The dental industry is kind of getting away from dental labs more because they can use the machines that stay in that lab at the office, and they can make the crowns, but they can't really do in-office dentures quite yet.
So you're saying that the dental lab industry, now when I got my crown, you guys had to send that out,
yeah, mainly because of the abutment.
mainly because of the abutment.
Yeah, so the abutment is titanium. So the lab still has to pour that up.
Am I going to set off the alarm at the airport when I fly out
No.
there? No.
that would be amazing.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Chris, you'd like that. You'd probably live stream that. Hey, everybody, Ken is currently getting patted down
Oh, that'd be
completely.
great. Oh yeah. If that
setting off the
happens, you've
alarm.
got to do
They
that.
took him into the private room.
Oh,
We should
no.
set him up in his bag.
Yeah, how about
Yes.
no? How about no? So then I didn't get a chance to look at this. It's kind of a surprise, but so do you think that the dental lab industry is shrinking, expanding, or adapting then to that? What do you know?
I guess so. It's shrinking in a sense that the crowns can be made in the office, but it's expanding on like the orthodontic side, because now instead of people doing the traditional braces with the metal and all of that, they're
Yeah.
doing trays that the labs make.
So they'll do a tray made at the lab, customized to the patient's mouth, but the dental lab has to do what to the tray?
They make the tray. It's basically a piece of plastic that they put inside of a machine that heats up the plastic and makes it pliable. And then they have a model of the patient's mouth underneath, and they suck it down. So they put it down on the model while it's pliable. And then there's a vacuum that like seals it in, and then you let it cool back to its hard state. And then it's
that tray, does it have teeth attached to it, or what is it?
nope. It's basically like have you seen Invisalign?
Yeah.
So it's like that. It's just a plastic tray.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so
I
you
think
know-
in terms of growth, I think, at least according to this thing I found, the market is supposed to grow significantly in the next 6 years, by 2030?
Nice.
Yeah. Or so I guess 5 years now.
So they're doing more crowns and more of the bridges. Do they do bridges in dental office too? Crowns
Yep.
and bridges in dental offices can be done in a dentist's office, but the dental lab industry will pivot and they'll adapt and they'll stay in their niche. They'll create different things. You know, when the COVID lockdowns hit, the lab industry, many labs had to retrofit so they could do COVID samples because no one was going in for their cholesterol tests, routine lab tests. And so maybe the dental lab will also pivot and, they have to stay relevant and vibrant, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also the machine that makes the crowns is extremely expensive. It's like $200,000 just for the 3D printer, not to mention $150,000 for the scanner that you use. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's very expensive. And you know,
So not every dental office around the country is going to be able to afford that
Right.
investment to the 3D printer and the scanner that was in my mouth just a few weeks ago.
yeah.
I get it. I can visualize what that was like.
So the dental insurances, they haven't raised their fees in like 8+ years. So think of how our economy was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
They haven't raised it at all. So when you come in and you have an insurance, we can't charge more than that because we're under contract with them. So legally we can't charge more. So we have to take that lesser fee, and they haven't raised it at all, but
That's crazy.
everything else has raised.
So that reminds me of the clinical lab industry, because some of the panels here, give me one of those specimen bags. Some of the panels that are being run in a laboratory might have multiple lab specimens in them. The retail value is $1,200, but Medicaid says you're under contract with us, or Medicare, I guess it would be, and they say you can only charge $12 for that panel for every Medicare patient that comes through the door.
Yeah.
And that is pretty crazy, and it is painful to the industry. But I'm going to guess that if the lab industry takes a loss, they write off that loss, so they're able to offset their costs. But still, it is interesting that once you get locked into a contract like that, from an insurance standpoint, there can be definite disincentives financially
Yeah.
for doing the work, or you just get locked in and you have to adjust your budget and kind of deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, courier companies have to deal with that as well. Changing in the landscape, what your client is doing. Sometimes you'll not be delivering certain products, and you got to adapt. You still have the client, but maybe their workload is shifting, or maybe the scope of work that they want you to do is shifting. So couriers have to adapt as well. So interesting. So, all right, we've got a basic idea what the dental lab does then. So in rural or smaller cities, the dentists still have to take impressions and send them to the dental lab, where the dental lab will create, based on the impression, a crown, a bridge, all the above.
Yeah, or we'll scan the tooth. So we have a camera that takes like millions of little pictures and it stitches them together, makes a 3D image, and then we'll digitally send that file to the lab. But then they still have to deliver a crown to the office.
So would you say that digital process is replacing the need for those
for the goopy impressions that everyone hates?
Yeah, we used to deliver those a lot.
So we have a picture up here of the alginate impression. So the pink impression right there on the left, the dental assistant would take that. It goes in like a gummy material, and then it comes out looking like that. And then usually that pink part is disinfected first. So we put it in a Ziploc bag, spray it with disinfectant, leave it in there for however long the TB kill time is. And then once it's done, we will pour stone into it, and then it will look like that blue model right there on the right. So that's
Stone.
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
So that's what you will be delivering to and from labs for things like crowns.
So you talked about the what kill time?
TB kill time, tuberculosis kill time. So
is TB spread by saliva then?
It can be.
It can be.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
But
So
it's mainly aerosols. But that's our main. That's what you look for when you get disinfectants.
Okay. So I noticed you said that the dentist's office disinfects that. The risk manager in me always thinks, sure you did.
Yeah.
Sure you did. We train drivers on universal precautions. They're going to treat everything they're transporting as if it was highly infectious.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit then. Describe what a dental lab courier would do. Have you guys had dental lab couriers from around town that'll show up and pick things up? What do they do?
So they'll basically show up and either go to where the staff normally puts it, so they'll know like, oh, they put it behind the desk, or they'll ask the front desk, where do you guys, or I'm here to pick up for blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then they will give them usually it's in a case pan. Chris, you should look up a case pan, a dental case pan, dental lab case pan.
Oh, I'm on it.
Yeah. So
usually, you'd pick up the dental case pan that it normally comes in, or sometimes they're just in a Ziploc bag.
Right.
And so that's what they'll look like there.
Or a lunch bag.
Yeah.
So I have, Integrity Medical Couriers did quite a bit of dental work in Colorado Springs, dental lab deliveries. And actually we had some accounts up in Denver as well that we serviced. And so a lot of, more often than not, we're picking up that tray, and there are pieces and there are parts and there's gold and there's, other kinds of metals bouncing around in there. You throw that in a courier's car on the back seat. What are the odds that you're going to lose something out of that as you're driving down the highway?
Oh, and that's absolutely happened before to us. We've had crowns come back and we're trying to put it in and we're like, this straight up does not fit. And we call the lab and they're like, oh yeah, this other office also had a crown that didn't fit. So I wonder if they got switched out. Yeah.
Well, maybe a courier took a corner and he had a couple of crowns bouncing around the,
like,
the back seat, and he's like,
all back together.
They look the same. Put them in there, take a shot. What are the odds that you get it wrong?
Yeah. 1 in 3.
Yeah, no kidding. And so, my those are my concerns. So we talk a lot about transportation best practices. And so I remember at some point we used to have these Tupperware containers that snap shut, and we would put dental trays, line them up 2 or 3 or 4, line them up in the tray, and then put the lid on it and snap it shut, secure the tray in the car. But still, if you slam on the brakes or you hit a big bump, everything goes airborne, and now you've got, like you said, pieces and parts that went to this lab or that lab or whatever, and that is a mess. What about we talked about what they're transporting, how it's transported. Now we look at regulations. The Department of Transportation has regulations on how lab specimens should be transported. And we don't train a lot on DOT requirements. We really refer a lot to OSHA. You train also in OSHA. Tell me what that looks like, and how'd you get into that in the dental office?
Well, it's really just one of the things that I really enjoyed learning about. I loved going by the book. So if this is the way we need to do it, then that's the way that it needs to be done. So yeah, I really like that. So I have been the OSHA coordinator at all of my offices that I've worked at. So I know already on the dental side, OSHA back and forth. I could do it in my sleep.
How did you do that? Did you have to read the standard? And is that still part of OSHA 29 CFR 1910 1030, or where is it?
Yeah. So we have someone that does training kind of like what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do it once a year, just like medical couriers do as well.
Yeah.
And so there's one gal here in town who's amazing. She's a stickler for it. And so I learned in school, but then she kind of reiterated everything, and she tells us if anything has changed and all of that. So yeah, that's kind of how.
There's a lot of moving parts in a dental office. What are some of the big areas? Excuse me. What are some of the areas of concern that you would see as far as OSHA compliance and safety goes?
Oh, people needing to use gloves when they're not. So if we have what's called an ultrasonic cleaner, where it cleans all of the blood and saliva off of the instruments. So sometimes people will just go in there without gloves and, it doesn't matter. I'll just, grab this real quick. And then they go and touch something that we don't touch with gloves. They'll go into a cabinet that everybody else goes into, and then we're all sick. We had that at one of my offices. People were just sick all the time. I was constantly sick. Yeah. And it was because the other assistants just didn't use the gloves when they needed to. And
what would some of the illnesses be?
I mean, usually like colds and flus and COVID and
man.
Wow.
All the bad stuff.
That's it? Yeah.
That's it.
Wow. I have a question.
So the issues go.
Yeah.
So when we were delivering dental like 20 years ago, there was someone that we would pick up from, and they had a dental lab in their house. It was like the whole bottom floor of their house.
Yes,
Does that still happen? And is that still like compliant with regulations?
Yeah, for sure. So we had another one too that in one of my offices, and he did a lot of the orthodontic stuff. And yeah, he had his lab in his house, and he would just work down in his basement.
Do those dental labs ever get inspected? I mean, they have to be compliant with. Well, what are some of the compliances that the dental lab industry? I mean, OSHA is the obvious one, but what are some of the other issues or organizations or regulations they have to comply with?
So they don't, other than needing to wear like your goggles because when you're working with the models, you kind of trim them so it blows things everywhere. So you need to protect your eyes, but especially like like this one lab that we worked with, they were a stickler on, you need to send us your cases clean so that they can work on those models without gloves. They don't have to worry about getting the illnesses because we disinfect everything before we send
And
it to
again,
them.
the risk assessor in me says, how do you verify?
And you just, you don't
Take their word for it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we disinfected everything. Sure we did. We
But
promise.
also, that's what you're doing when you go into the dental office. You're trusting that they cleaned everything and that they're doing what they need to do. So, which kind of scares me.
Yeah.
How often do you guys get inspected, and from whom?
The only time we get inspected is if an employee calls OSHA and tells them there's a concern.
Really?
Same thing with dental labs.
Have you ever seen that happen?
Yes. Yep. I could tell you an office right now who got inspected. They failed. They got huge fines. They had to close. And then so they recently reopened within the last few months, and they are like, they're locked down with OSHA.
I bet.
And OSHA comes in and makes sure that they're still doing it. Like they're kind of on a probationary period, but they like, it's kind of a nightmare over there.
Yeah. Once you suffer, I should say suffer, once you incur an inspection and you fail, they're going to come by and check on a regular basis because, you know, it's a big deal. I mean, safety of your workers, safety of the people that you service, that's a big issue. And, you know, a lot of courier companies, they just don't OSHA schmosha. I saw one courier company, they said, we're OSHA compliant. They spelled it OCEA. And I had to look at it from two different ways. I'm like, OSHA is OCEA, is that? And my mind went to the ocean, their OSHA, you know, oceanographic, what, you know, what is this they're talking about? They were talking about OSHA, but you know, the issue is always, it's not a problem until it's a problem.
Right.
It's not a failure until we fail.
Yep.
You know, and so in some areas, the lab, you know, I mean, on the clinical lab side, all my life, I mean, from 1980 to 2000, I was a lab courier. And if I had a nickel for every time I saw lunch or soda right next to a lab specimen or in the same area of the fridge, and we have examples of that, but the opportunities for cross-contamination are legion because, you know, you get these different, some clinics are more vigilant than others, and you get into a culture. I mean, I'm sure you've been to different dental office where you go, these guys, I mean, you see it, you identify all these areas where you know that they're just begging for a violation.
Oh yeah. And once you get a violation or once OSHA comes in, if it's bad enough, they will shut you down permanently. You won't get to work again. So thinking of on the dental side, dentists come out of school with $1 million in debt. And then for OSHA to come in, and how do you pay off $1 million in debt if you're not making that money as a dentist? There's no way.
So the violation follows the dentist, not the practice.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh my.
Depending. I mean, well, yeah. Everything is under the dentist's license.
Yeah.
The hygienists also have licenses in Colorado that they can lose their license for certain things too, but we all work under the dentist. It's his license on the line.
So it would behoove the dentist to be a barracuda when it comes to compliance, safety, cleaning, you know, all of it, because their literal livelihoods are on the line.
Yeah. Yep. They put a lot of trust in their staff. They're literally putting their livelihoods on the line. And that's why the OSHA gal that we go to, she starts off her OSHA classes by saying, this violation happened and this is what fees they incurred, or they closed down because of this or whatever, because she wants to scare them into taking this seriously.
That's interesting. You know, in the courier side, and that's funny you bring that up because I search for facts and figures on courier exposures, needle sticks or a splash in the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, you know, driver infections. And there's no standalone figures on that, because that, even if it's a lab employee, they fold it into the statistics for the lab industry. And it looks like a lab employee injury or incident or infection or whatever. But I can tell you multiple stories in my history of people that suffered a needle stick in the lab industry, lab employees, and whether they were working as a courier or not, the figures of lab-related infections and industries are folded into a larger picture of just the lab. It's not the courier got infected. Well, he was a lab employee, so we're not going to break that out and say, you know, 10% of all medical couriers get infected every year. There's no data on that.
Right.
And it's kind of hidden. So it just doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. It's just there's no data available.
They don't track it. Yep.
Yeah, they don't track it. So we talked about how impressions and things like that are transported. We showed an example of the tray and thing. So let's talk about packaging requirements. You talked about these Ziploc sandwich baggies. So in the dental lab industry, assuming that it's been infected, there is no requirement for that to be shipped in a biohazard marked bag.
Right.
What happens if a driver's in an accident and he had 1,000 impressions in there, and somebody was picking up impressions alongside the road and they got an infection from an unmarked baggie that was open and it wasn't properly infected?
They would probably have to go through the protocol. They would have to go and get their blood tested every, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months.
Yeah, been there.
And make sure. Yep.
Been there. So when I worked at the laboratory in Minneapolis, I had a pickup, and I don't know if you're familiar with this story. I was picking up specimens at a place called ARC West. ARC stands for AIDS-related complex, and it was a treatment center for people in different varying stages of AIDS.
Wow.
Okay. And one day I go in, I grab a bundle of specimens. The refrigerator was under the counter, and I was lifting them up from the fridge to put them on the counter to count them. We didn't have scanners back then. One of the specimens leaked all over my hands, and I may or may not have had open, hangnails or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But I washed up immediately, called the laboratory, and told them what happened. They drew my blood at the end of the day, again in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and a year later. Did I mention that I was a needle wuss?
Literally passes out.
Yeah, it does happen. So that was a great year for me. But there is a process and a procedure that has to happen, and that's why training and compliance is so important. So we've got our courses. If you go to integritydelivers.com, you're going to see automated courses. You click on Get Trained, and then there's a drop-down menu. Online courses. We've got a library full of courses on safely handling and transporting items. That's where your course is going to be found.
Yep.
Right. So we'll put it in the library. We'll charge a fee for it, but couriers need to know that there still is a certain level of risk. What about okay, you talked about spreading disease within the dental clinic.
Mm-hmm.
If someone doesn't properly disinfect things, you can get sick, you can get a cold, you can get COVID. Is there any level of risk to that for couriers, do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even if someone say they don't disinfect that model, and they're touching it
that's
with
my
their
assumption.
Yeah. They have their gloves on, sure, but they're touching the model, then they're putting it in the Ziploc bag, then they're closing the Ziploc bag with their dirty, gross gloved hands.
Yeah.
And then maybe they're even putting it in the tray with those gloved hands and bringing it up to the front or wherever you pick it up. You 100% could get one of those sicknesses, or God forbid, if it's a blood-borne illness, you could get hepatitis, AIDS,
So there is a risk, and that's so interesting because on the one hand, we're not being the dental clinics are not being required to put the impression in a biohazard bag, but in reality, it is a potential biohazard. The definition with OSHA: other potentially infectious materials, anything that comes from human body.
Yep.
So OPIM. So dental impressions should be considered OPIM just like anything else.
Mm-hmm. And saliva you don't see it.
Yeah.
It's not colored. There's a really good video.
Oh boy.
If saliva were red.
No way.
Yeah. So if you ever look it up on YouTube, it's a really good one. It shows you how saliva can spread so easily, and you don't see it. You don't know.
If saliva were red. Well, that's a comforting thought. So at Integrity Medical, we don't try and overplay. Listen, you transport a dental lab bag, you're at a high risk of getting an infection, but there's never no risk.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. There's never no risk. And so in this course, we're going to make you aware of the risks that are available in the dental lab industry, so you're more knowledgeable. I believe knowledge is power. I get people from time to time, friends and associates, to say, Kenny, you got to scare up your courses more. And I've just never felt right about that, because I feel like we shouldn't have to manipulate people into safety. I think knowledge is power. So let's give you the basic facts, assuming you're an adult in this industry, give you the basic facts, and then you have to walk it out. You have to apply it on your job. The reality is that in the courier industry and in the dental lab industry and in the clinical lab industry, there are people that have come into this industry. They took a course, they got trained, they're in the industry, and maybe they don't like their job. Maybe they've got trouble in their life. Whatever, maybe they just don't care. And they take shortcuts, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we all encounter them. If you ever, Justin's always talking about how you go to certain drive-thrus and you can literally tell the staff just hates their life. They're just going through the motions. They're not in any hurry. They don't care. Here's your food. Off you go. But there's people like that in the lab industry, in the dental lab industry as well. How they carry themselves and conduct themselves in every part of the job. You can literally look at them and go, this person hates what they do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And so puts everybody at risk. So OSHA regs in the lab and on the road. Let's talk about that, because, and that's probably going to be where we finish up. But OSHA 29 CFR 1910 1030 talks about how it's the responsibility of a laboratory to package specimens in a biohazard mark, leak-proof, puncture-resistant baggie. It's in the language. We teach it. We train it. OSHA requires lab couriers to use coolers that are biohazard marked, leak-proof, and puncture-resistant.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the dental lab industry is kind of flying under the radar, where people can kind of just do what they want. But can you talk just, about some of what you might perceive as possible risks in the transport side of that?
So one of the biggest ones is some offices don't sterilize their instruments in the office.
Do tell.
They send their instruments to an outside source and they will sterilize their instruments and then you will return it back in there. So those instruments have blood, they have plaque, tartar, bone, they have all kinds of nasty stuff on them.
Yeah.
So, and I would say with the dental lab stuff too, it needs to be in a locking container that's leak proof, spill proof, all of that. So that if you were to get into a car accident or any of that stuff, or say you trip while you're walking
Right,
out with those instruments, you will stab yourself with it. And then,
Okay, what about the biohazard marking on that same cooler?
yes, biohazard
Has
as well.
to be- okay,
Yep,
good.
has to
Got
have
it.
it on there. Yep.
I always think about, and your mother, our CEO of the company and CFO, she sometimes says, I'm like Chicken Little, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Well, it may be.
Yeah.
It may be. And when it comes to your safety and your health and the safety of the public, you should be thinking of the worst case scenario. We don't start our day thinking, I'm going to get in an accident today.
Right.
I'm going to get rear-ended today. I fly around the country several times a year and do group training classes and in warehouses, and I do driver ride-alongs and inspections. And several years ago in the Midwest, I rode with the courier, and I stayed in the car. I think I had a business call. He came out with a shiny, it wasn't a dental lab, it was a surgical tray. And he throws it on the back seat. Clunk, you can hear things jostling around inside. And the lid kept sliding off. We drove to our next stop, which was about 7 minutes away, several miles, several stop signs. I mean, just think about if we got rear-ended, you got scalpels flying through the car at 60 miles per hour. It's not good. And there's AMI regulations, AAMI. I don't know if Chris, if you can pull up a snapshot of AAMI. There are new regulations coming down the pike, and I'm guessing this is going to affect the dental lab industry as much as it is the hospital industry. But these are new regulations on how everything needs to be properly handled, stored, transported, shipped. There it is, AAMI standards. We need to look into this a little bit, because I think we're going to have to incorporate this into our training. But it's going to be really stringent, and it's dealing with sterile and clean and sterile and contaminated instruments, and how they're packaged, how they're handled, how they're transported, how they're cleaned. But it will affect the transportation industry for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
So, and I'm sure it's going to affect the dental lab industry as well. So thank you, Chris, for pulling that up. We'll be looking more at that, but it's going to change everything. And, I mean, I think that it's a long time. It's been a long time coming. So it'll affect the hospital and laboratory industry, and then they'll have to require AMI compliance from their transport people as well. Because if they don't, the facility's going to get the fine if there's an incident. And so it's an ongoing issue, and couriers are transporting it all the time. And but there's no excuse for not being aware of the requirements and how to do it safely and effectively. So, talk a little bit about the course, Faith, that you're putting together, and what it's going to be like.
So it's kind of going to be an add-on. So I'm not going to go too much into what you already go over with the specimen transport and handling, handling and transport, however it is. Yeah, same thing. Yeah. But I am going to have some of it in there, the main points. And then we'll go over how you transfer how you transfer dental instruments, lab work. Sometimes you will pick up like biohazard waste for dental offices.
Like what?
Everything is biohazard waste now. So they're kind of changing it. Before it was anything blood soaked needed to go in the biohazard. Dentists are cracking down on that, mainly the dentists, because they don't want a fine from it because it's such a gray area.
Yep.
They want everything in there.
Well, I like that. I like that they're swinging more towards being more stringent in this with their employees, because again, from a selfish standpoint, I wouldn't, as a business owner, I wouldn't want one of my employees who didn't follow the regulations to torpedo my life.
Yeah.
Because it literally can be that. I mean, not to mention the infection risk. I mean, I'm not minimizing that, but as a business owner, it behooves them to crack down. So
yeah.
Okay, so
and you also, like the lab coats that dental staff wears, they have to get it laundered, and you can do it on site, but a lot of them get destroyed. So there's companies that will come and pick up your lab coats, and there's rules with that. You can't just pick up a bag of coats in a mesh bag. There's blood and saliva and plaque and tartar and bone and all kinds of stuff all over those lab coats, and you throw them in your car, and it's rubbing all over your seats, and then you pick up little Johnny from school and give him a Happy Meal, and it's like.
Tell me about the work area and how that's carried out in the dental lab, in the dental office, the work area concept. Because I know in the laboratories you cannot, and we've got several pictures of where the lab tech was drinking their morning coffee, and they've got a sample on the counter next to them, and they were entering into the computer, and then they got distracted. Open coffee, open specimen, there it is.
Yeah.
But the lab coat issue, and in laboratories, if they're properly compliant, they're very stringent on the whole work area concept.
Yes.
You can't, and I mean, there's gray areas, but if somebody walks from a procedure room with a lab coat and they just got done doing a procedure and they go out into the lobby to greet someone.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So there are areas. So we have a staff lounge, and then there's the waiting area that you talked about. So both of those areas, and like the front office, you cannot go into those areas with your dirty lab coat. So a lot of the time, what offices will have you do is you put your lab coat on when you get into that operatory where you are worked on. And then you take off your lab coat to bring them up front, and then you switch it out for the next patient. Which is the new thing since OSHA.
So how often do you see someone from an operatory room area where there was a procedure wearing a lab coat walking up to maybe the receptionist to talk about a billing issue or something that they got to follow up on?
All the time. Or in the staff lounge, they'll go in, they'll try to get a snack or a drink of water in between patients, and they'll have their lab coat on.
Oh.
Here's the thing, and again, one of these days, one of those lab techs, or EDAs or whatever you're going to call them, they're going to walk out, and there's going to be somebody in the waiting room standing there, and it's going to be OSHA.
Yep.
Years ago, when I worked at the nation's largest clinical lab, whom I will not name, but you can look it up. It's in my history. I was the trainer for the laboratory in the Midwest. There was a courier in Van Nuys that was walking out of a hospital with a handful of specimen baggies in his hand, walking down the sidewalk. And who was walking up the sidewalk but an OSHA inspector?
No.
They passed each other on the sidewalk. The driver was fired. The lab was fined. So it's never
Yeah.
It's never. You always have to think, what's the possibility that I'm going in and out of this facility? OSHA may be present. Or from a courier standpoint, it could be one of your representatives. There are safety inspectors within the hospitals. It's their main job to see a violation. They could see you walking out of a facility not properly transporting the item, and they could fire the courier company because of it.
That's a very good point.
We had a courier one of my clients had a courier that got caught with a bologna sandwich in their specimen bag. So he goes into the lab. The lab tech opens up the cooler, starts pulling out specimens, and there's a bologna sandwich in the specimen cooler. And they fired the courier company because of it.
I believe it.
So the courier company lost the contract because the driver was doing something really stupid. So more about the course. So it's going to be an awareness of the dental lab industry, what it is, an awareness of what a dental lab courier might do. I'm sorry, and then because I looked up some income possibilities here. According to ZipRecruiter, now this I'm going to compare two industries. The average medical lab courier makes $36,000 a year, which averages out to be $17 an hour. And that's driving company vehicles, I do believe. The average dental lab courier makes a little less. According to Indeed.com, the average dental lab courier makes as low as $11.25 an hour or as much as $16.26 an hour. Now, if you're driving a company car, that's not bad, right? But if you're driving your own car, you got to look at the cost. So, wrap it up what your course is going to look like and how soon do you think you'll be done with it?
So I think I can be done with it. My goal is to have it done by the end of March, which I think it's going to be definitely before that. I'm already pretty much done with it. Just doing some tweaking here and there. But yeah, we're going to go over, I'll do some HIPAA, I'll do OSHA. I will add the AAMI in there. So that'll be in there as well. And yeah, we'll just talk about how to transport everything. So instruments, lab work, waste, laundry, all that stuff.
Perfect. That's going to be great. Listen, Integrity Medical Courier Training. We're here to provide courses that you need so you can learn how to service different industries. We're adding new programs, on a regular basis. I'm really excited about this one because there are opportunities in every city across the country. There's multiple dental labs. Some of them are really, really big. You could be doing 20 or 30 deliveries in a day. And so there's lots of opportunities to build a route or to add on to a route, but someone's got to pick it up and deliver it. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to offer that course. You'll learn about it. Will there be a certificate? Do you think?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
If they want it, we'll make it.
Still haven't hammered that out, but why not? Because you're going to be sharing your expertise. You've got, you said 11 years in the industry? 13 years in the industry. And so this is great. I'm so proud of our organization because when I go live, a lot of the times I'll tell people we've got 3 people that have a clinical lab background and 2 or 3, including you, that have an OSHA compliance background. And so, there's no reason why people should be out there purchasing their courses from a 6-figure rich influencer who has no background in medical. Justin was just telling me this morning about a guy that called and said he bought a OSHA and HIPAA course from a gentleman online whose aunt white papered the OSHA course for him. He is ignoring his students, and I'm getting call after call about this. In other words, if they reach out to him and say, "I don't understand this concept about OSHA. Can you help me out?" Silence.
He can't because he doesn't know.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't know, and so he is actually, by his very existence and refusal to comply, he's violates OSHA. OSHA requirements state that there must be opportunity for questions and answers for the person conducting the training. So if a person's not answering their students, they've given a OSHA safety course, but they're not compliant because they're not supporting their students and they're not answering their questions.
Yeah.
OSHA also states the person conducting the training needs to be knowledgeable in the subject matter as it relates to the workplace that the training will address. You have 13 years in the industry. I would say that that's a great level of knowledge to offer this course to people that want to get into the industry. And so we're really excited and proud about it and happy to have you.
Thank you.
Helping us out,
Happy to
Faith.
be here.
So
I also did. courier 4 years before that as well. Four
Oh,
years.
Okay.
So I did the medical courier stuff first.
Who'd you do that for?
Integrity Medical Couriers.
That's great. That's great. So you bring a lot of industry expertise, and that's what we're all about. This is not an organization. Integrity Medical Courier Training is not an organization that knows about an industry. We know the industry, and that's a difference. I mean, we have people that literally have done this work for many, many, many years and are sharing their expertise with you so you can get the training and certification that you need to go out and safely service your labs, hospitals, dental lab clients. And so it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right,
So,
Chris, go ahead.
It's time to take a trip down Admin Alley. Let me grab the video. Actually, real quick, do you want to tell people about our Next Steps class? We're working on the name still. I think I heard we were changing it, but
yeah, I want to change it to First Steps class.
Yeah.
So the idea is there's a lot of people that come, especially in the Medical Couriers group on Facebook. We have 191.3 thousand members there. And people come in every single day. Can I do this, in Minneapolis? What about Milwaukee? What about Miami? What about Kansas City? Can I do this in Los Angeles? How do I get started? What do I do? The First Steps class, right now we have a course online called Starting Your Own Courier Business, and it goes through a lot of the basics on things that you should be aware of, how to form your business. Are you going to be an LLC or a sole proprietor? Should you use employees or contractors? Should you, what kind of insurances, what kind of vehicles? And so we're working to build out those courses so that when you view it, you're going to learn from the very, very beginning what you need to do to get your company up and running. And then the rest, of course, is up to you. But we're really proud of our library. We've got a ever-growing, robust library of instructional courses, no matter where you are in your medical courier journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
we've already had how many courses? You guys have already done it twice?
The Next Steps class, we've done 3 or 4 of those actually. Yeah. And we're going to do more and more. Our goal is to do maybe twice a month, so that, because again, there's more and more people coming in every single day. We want to give people ample opportunity to learn how to grow their businesses and how to do it properly. Because if you want to get into the industry, that's wonderful, but you got to know where to start, where to look, how to launch it, and how to protect it. The course that Linda's working on deals with finances. And again, if you don't know whether or not you're making money on certain deliveries, you could be out there losing your shirt while you think you're being productive, but you're actually operating at a loss. And that's not good for anybody. So,
yeah.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, listen, you guys, we are excited about the course coming up. So if you want to get in the dental lab industry, Faith will have that course up and running before too long, by the end of March, she says. And it'll really help you look at what a dental lab courier does. And we'll talk a little bit about the profitability and things like that. But it's a great course, and you need to be aware that that is an option for medical couriers. And so we'll have that up hopefully by the end of March. So that's it for this episode of the Medical Courier Connection podcast. You guys, I thank you all for hanging out. It's been kind of fun chatting and talking. This is the family event. This company, we're staffed by family members, but you know what? Each of us, Chris, you've done medical deliveries. We all have an experience in this industry. We've done it. It's not like we're outsiders trying to sell you something or convince you to buy something that we don't know about. And so that really sets us apart. We are uniquely qualified to provide the training and certification that you need to service your hospital, laboratory, blood bank, pharmacy, and dental lab clients. www.integritydelivers.com. We'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Hey everybody. Ken with Integrity Medical Courier Training. I'm a medical courier. Of course I keep patient information private. Dude, you are never gonna believe whose specimen I just picked up. Oh! Oh, here it is. Dude, I don't know what any of this is. I wasn't paying attention in the integrity training class.
Yeah, that sounds a bit expensive. I think I'll just train them myself. After all, this isn't rocket science.
And we have liftoff of Antares.